All right, welcome back everybody to Altcoin Daily. My name's Austin. This is breaking news. It looks like the Federal Reserve of the United States is again set to cut interest rates again. This timeline has been a very interesting series of events. This first event actually happened 3 or 4 days ago at the end of last week, so Friday morning. And remember, last week was the worst week Wall Street has seen since the 2008 financial crisis. Well, last Friday in the morning, head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, issued a very rare statement to the public, saying due to the stagnant economy, due to the bleak outlook of coronavirus, the Fed is prepared to take action. And listen to this. Listen to the urgency in his voice as he reads this.
Federal Reserve Jay Powell out with a statement now saying the Fed will use all our tools and act as appropriate to support the economy. I can read you the full statement here, which says fundamentals of the U.S. economy remain strong. However, the coronavirus poses evolving risk to the outlook, evolving risk to the economic activity. The Federal Reserve is closely monitoring developments and their implications for the economic outlook. We will use our tools and act as appropriate to support the economy. An unusual statement issued, I would suspect, quite specifically while the market remains open, suggesting that the Federal Reserve could act and use all their tools and act as appropriate. Kelly?
Wow. Now remember, the Fed issued this statement last Friday. We will use our tools and act as appropriate to support the economy. By the way, guys, support. Like the video. Cutting interest rates, especially in this type of quantity, it's not that normal. It tells me that there's something wrong. Remember, in July of 2019, so last year in July, the Fed cut rates for the first time since the 2008 financial crisis. So they cut rates for the first time since 2008, and last year in 2019, they cut interest rates 3 times last year. Well, now that brings us to today. Goldman Sachs is making news. They just announced / confirmed that yes, they believe we will be seeing not 1, but 2 interest rate cuts, 0.5% each, the first one being an emergency cut before the March 17th, 18th meeting. Before I give you my take, let's go and find out what exactly did Goldman Sachs say, and also what is President Trump? He is speaking about this too. What is he saying about the Fed cutting rates?
The stalwart of the U.S. economy, Goldman Sachs, writing in a note to clients this weekend, there is an increasing likelihood, quote, that shortages of consumer goods from China will weigh on the U.S. consumer spending growth in the spring. Those types of concerns have led markets to count on the Fed to cut interest rates deeply over the next several months and increasingly to forecast emergency cuts, that is, before the Fed's next scheduled meeting on March 18th. But it doesn't appear to be happening tonight from anything we can see. Pantheon writing, quote, delay is pointless at best and deeply counterproductive at worst, given the dramatic tightening of financial conditions. The market now sees the Fed bringing down its benchmark overnight lending rate by a 0.5 percentage point by or during the March meeting and by another 0.5 point throughout the year. So that would be a full 1 percentage point decline in interest rates, with some forecasts that it could even go to 0, as he has done before and throughout the crisis. The president urged the Fed yesterday to make those cuts.
Our Fed should start being a leader, not a follower. Our Fed has been a follower. We need a Fed that's going to be a leader. We should have at least the same rates and ideally lower rates than other countries. We shouldn't be paying more.
Okay, so President Trump clearly on the record, as he has been, saying that the Fed should be cutting the rates. And why not, right? It'll stimulate the economy in the short term. In layman's terms, here's how the Fed rate cuts will affect you. So here's how they stimulate the economy. The Federal Reserve's decision to cut interest rates may mean cheaper loans for most Americans, although at the same time consumers will earn less interests on their savings. And yes, stimulating the economy in the short term obviously has some value in the short term. The problem is, 0 or negative interest rates, many believe, can do tremendous damage to the economy in the long run. Adding to the addiction to cheap money has become a problem as central banks around the world go on a path of increasing lower rates. So negative interest rates, despite how much Trump might want that, how does that end? How is that sustainable long term? Now, what's interesting for you as a Bitcoin holder, this only increases the relative scarcity of BTC. Right? I mean, when fiat money is as disposable and as cheap as toilet paper, How valuable does that make a decentralized, hard-capped asset? Think about it. Before we get to some very interesting UPS news, let's wrap up this whole Fed discussion with this. Think about the urgency here that the Fed must be feeling if even Wells Fargo is confirming that we're probably going to see these rate cuts before their March meeting. I don't know. Think about what kind of cracks this is showing in our economy. Just watch this.
Whether it does much good or not, Scott.
Fed might not be able to wait as long as it does. Maybe that's the biggest takeaway thus far. They did the statement on Friday while the market was still open. Perhaps it wanted to get that out. Market still wants something else to happen. Do you think the Fed can wait until its next meeting?
Can I answer that slightly differently and say I think the Fed wants to wait? I think the Fed would like to see how far it actually spreads, how deeply it's embedded in the economy or in the nation here, and would like some data with which to make that call. I think the sense of your question is 100% accurate. It may not be able to wait. Further slides in the market, these increasing calls by in the market by political officials for the Fed to cut rates may be a kind of pressure it can't wait.
This is going to be a very interesting decade. Very important. Hit subscribe. Hit subscribe. We drop daily videos keeping you informed. You do not want to miss one of our daily updates. This was interesting. UPS has a page dedicated to blockchain. 4 ways blockchain can be used throughout supply chain. They go over smart contracts, tracking, being able to track packages on an immutable ledger, fraud and theft prevention, and the transacting process, how blockchain can benefit industries like package and shipping delivery. So, kind of bullish. I really liked what this guy said. Kind of bullish. It looks like more established companies like UPS are open to blockchain, which is a great thing overall. Now, this is where he's spot on. Whether they want to integrate it into a public chain is another story. And my guess is no for now. So yeah, obviously, if UPS initialized a permissioned private blockchain, I'd freaking hate it. But it would just make Bitcoin's use case more valuable. Either way, as more develops. By the way, let me know what you think about any of this down below in the comments. But I'll keep you updated if we get more information. All right, and final piece of news before I share something personal with you. An activity that I will be doing after this news. Binance's CMO put out a sexy comment, some people were calling it sexist, and had a little kerfluffle due to, I believe, cultural misappropriations. Let me clue you in. In simplistic terms, they put out a post on Chinese Twitter, Weibo, seeking a beautiful woman with a large chest to fill a job position. Some people call that sexist. In brief, Binance's CMO and co-founder posted a, what she now calls satire, although it's since been deleted, that post, a satire job ad for an attractive young woman with big breasts. The only problem is, what is the joke? They just put out a job offer, a job request to try and find somebody. Though a joke, Binance apparently hired somebody else who did have big breasts that did fit that description for the other job they were searching for too. Now, Binance told Decrypt, this news site, that the co-founder's comments were a cultural miscommunication. Interesting. In a direct quote, this was the post. We're looking for a woman with a beautiful, large chest. Somebody who's been a webcaster before. And priority is given to those born after 2000. Send a CV. CMO He posted on Weibo, China's version of Twitter. So I have a question. I mean, where's the joke? I mean, satire? Pretty dry satire. But either way, company likes to joke around. Turns out, though, the next hire they made was somebody who did fit that description. I mean, I guess this person, coincidentally, they hired a young, attractive, large-chested woman after all, nicknamed roughly Lulu, who now works in customer support. Peace out. Guys, I'm keeping you informed. Is this the most relevant piece of news? You know, there'll be more tomorrow, and when there is more tomorrow, this channel will make a video. All right, that is the video for today. My name's Austin. Hope you guys have a hell of a week. I will be hitting up yoga shortly. I don't know. Let me know what you guys are getting into, starting off the week. But anyway, like always, see you tomorrow.